Is invisibility a fate worse than failure? I think so, and so does today's guest. Find out what he means and how you can stand out from your competition. Are you ready? Let's go! Hey everybody, Ryan Roten here, and this is the Brand New You podcast, where we explore how to use personal branding and social media to impact your career. No need to look any further. You found the podcast dedicated to helping you create a brand new you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Brand New You show. I'm Ryan, your host, and today we welcome to the show Matthew Capala, the founder of Search Decoder. Matthew is a branding and SEO expert who has helped large brands such as Apple, Dell, and Tommy Hilfiger leverage and use the internet to spur growth. He's an adjunct professor at NYU where he teaches search marketing. He's also the author of 2 books, Away with the Average and the Amazon best-selling book, SEO Like I'm 5. As an inbound marketing consultant, he is a sought-after international speaker, having spoken at events like Internet Summit, Search Marketing Day, and Mix Caribbean. He's also a blogger whose work has been featured on the Huffington Post, TNW and ProBlogger. He's gone from construction worker to busboy to waiter to executive and now entrepreneur. He's a fellow Udemy instructor and a self-proclaimed bootstrapping dreampreneur. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
So before we start, I have to ask, what is a dreampreneur?
You know, it's about always pursuing your dreams, right? So my favorite quote is, invisibility is a fate much worse than failure. So you kind of have to show up and you have to pursue your dreams and you have to have the passion. You have to tell stories. So I think everyone has dreams and everyone should pursue those dreams. So I'm just, this dreampreneur for life. And, my sort of set of dreams revolve around being my own business owner and, just telling stories and teaching other people how to do internet marketing.
That is awesome. I now want to officially become a dreampreneur.
I think you are, Ryan.
I'm living some kind of dream, that's for sure. Hey, so while we're talking about dreams, if you had only one place to vacation in for the rest of your vacation days, where would you go and why?
It's a good question, Ryan, because I love to travel. I just came back from almost 3 weeks in Europe. I was in Brussels and then Poland, where I'm originally from. And I just love seeing places. For me, traveling is more about workation. I like to go for extended period of time and really live, the environment as if living there instead of visiting. So I would go to India right now. I've never been to India. I'm into yoga and I love Indian people. I always get along with Indian people and I would love to see India.
Okay. Any particular place in India?
Definitely Bangalore and definitely a place like Hyderabad and, some other big kind of touristy places. But again, I would, go for extended period of time, which I'm planning to do end of the year for maybe a month or 2 and sort of do a lot of vacationing, but also do some work and, meet some people there that I would love to meet.
Awesome. Now, I know you're a well-read individual, having done a little bit of research via your blog and just Google searching. So while you're in India, which nonfiction book will you be taking with you?
I just started reading, and I'm sure you know the book, and I'm just embarrassed I haven't read it yet, but I'm just started reading Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. Yep. I'm not sure have you read that book, Ryan?
No, I haven't.
It's very well read.
I haven't. Don't be embarrassed. I've not read it yet either. It's on my list to read as well.
Yeah, I've heard it's a great book. I saw Robert speak at an event in PopCon, and he's just very knowledgeable about what drives people to say yes. So I'm really excited to read this book. I'll be taking it with me. And I'm also really, really looking forward to a book that is coming out in March called Stand Out. That's by Dory Clark, who wrote Reinventing Yourself, who's a personal branding expert. So I'm looking forward to her next book. She's really great.
Yeah, I've read a lot of stuff about Dory. It doesn't actually take many searches on personal branding before her name starts to come up.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's great. I think she would be a really good person for you to have on a podcast as well at some point.
Well, that'd be awesome. If you know her personally and could make an introduction, I would certainly appreciate that.
Consider it done, definitely.
Hey, I'm going to shift gears now. Let's move into a little segment I'm going to call Pick One and Tell Me Why. So I'll give you two choices. You just tell me which one appeals to you more and the reasons behind it. So my first one for you is, would you rather be a scaffold operator or a waiter?
Wow, it's a tough one. I like being scaffold operator because it was just amazing being a scaffold operator in Manhattan. You can have like all the best views. So it was awesome in that respect. But winters are kind of cold. So I rather stay indoors. So I go for being a waiter.
All right.
Both of those jobs taught me different things about, value of earning money, working hard, and then just customer service and really treating your customer, as king, if you will.
Yeah. So just so I'm clear, is a scaffold operator exactly what you think it is? So you're one of the guys who was hanging on the side of buildings?
Yeah, that happened for quite some time here in New York. And, that was one of me.
You are a much braver person than I am because there's no way I'm going to ever get on a scaffold. I can tell you that right now. I'm scared to death of heights.
I hear you.
Okay, next one. Would you rather, I think you've already touched on this, but would you rather do strength training or yoga?
Yoga all the way. I went to a couple CrossFit sessions and I was just sort of like, no way, Jose, this is too much for me. I like sort of, yoga and stretching and, I'm actually doing Bikram yoga, which is hot yoga. And, Ryan, I haven't gone to the gym in a while. And then I went to the gym and I felt like I was going to be so weak. But the whole yoga thing is just like overall body strength. And I got in the gym. I couldn't believe how strong I was. So yoga all the way.
Wow. Okay, cool. Well, I might actually have to take up yoga now. It sounds exciting. You and I talked about this before I hit the record button, but from a marketing standpoint, which do you prefer these days, podcasting or traditional marketing?
I love podcasting. I'm big into podcasting. I listen to podcasts every day. I really enjoy your podcast and some of the early interviews you've done. I listen to James Altucher's show.
He's got a great show.
Oh my God. He really influenced me when it comes to the topic of personal branding, choosing yourself, as he calls it. And who else I listen to? Pat Flynn and his Smart Passive Income. You mentioned Chris Brogan. I have to check him out. So, but I love podcasting. That's my medium right now. Yeah,
you listed some of the top ones that I listen to as well. Those guys are all awesome. I also heard a rumor that you'll be launching a podcast soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I have some early recordings, and I'll be actually launching two podcasts. One is sort of for SEO enthusiasts. It's going to be called SEO for Adults. And the other one is for entrepreneurs and sort of business owners who want to grow fast. And that's going to be Mastermind Sumo. So keep an eye for those two on iTunes.
Okay, yeah, make sure. I'll definitely link up, or not. I won't be able to link to them because they're not released, but I'll make sure they're called out in the show notes so that if people are interested, they can look forward to signing up and downloading once they're out.
Thanks, Ryan. And I think it's just a great opportunity for personal branding enthusiasts, because it really allows you to meet people and just interview them, have great conversations, put those ideas out there, and be able to reach new audiences on the internet.
Which would you rather see people use, or which one do you think is more beneficial for people to use? Personal brand landing pages or a website? And when I say personal brand landing pages, think about.me. eOlio is another one that's out, but just basically, a one-page summary from a personal brand standpoint where you can kind of get something out on the web quick? Or do you prefer to see an actual website?
It's a good question, Ryan, and I think I advocate both. However, you have to have a more holistic strategy when it comes to your online presence, and this is really my expertise. And you talk a lot about, when somebody searches your name in Google, either a recruiter or somebody who's can be a customer of yours, and they can't find you. That's a problem. But then when somebody searches for your name, you want to own Google. You don't want just one listing, right? You want to own the first page of Google, second page of Google. You want to own it for your name. So if you search for Matthew Capala today on Google, you see that I own it. So I'm beyond a website. I'm on places like LinkedIn, and but it's really smart to have your own website with your name as a domain. So for me, it would be MatthewCapala.com. I own that domain. But I'm also on SlideShare, on Facebook, on Twitter. I publish in other places. So, you want to have a holistic online presence and have a hub where you always link to, and when you drive people who find you online too, which is going to be a website.
Fantastic. And you are all over Google, by the way. It's clearly, I searched your name, and I think every Matthew Capala for like the first 10 pages of Google is you.
I have a unfair advantage because there are not many Matthew Capalas out there.
Well, it's true.
I think in the introduction to your podcast, you mentioned that there are 4 other individuals with your name out there on Google. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So then you have to be more competitive. Then you have to really compete with other folks. And if there are famous authors or if they are, famous entrepreneurs or what have you, then you have to compete even harder. So sometimes what people do is they use their middle name to differentiate themselves. But really where you should start is go to Google your name, and just figure out what the landscape is when you craft your own strategy. But you should be everywhere. You should be on platforms like LinkedIn and social media networks, blogs, and you should have your own website where you put your bio and your credentials on.
Fantastic. So let's assume that I'm one of the listeners, and I agree with what we're saying here, and I go out tonight and I buy my domain and I create a website, because it doesn't take a lot to do that. If you're using WordPress, what kind of content do I put on it?
It's a good question, Ryan. Like, you should really start with building a blog, because you need to be sort of a small media company, even though you are an individual. You need to be able to publish content, and a blog allows those publishing tools for you to leverage. So you may have a website structure in a way that you have a homepage, which is about you, some pictures of you, who you are, some favorite things about you, and then, about page and maybe testimonial page or whatever. It depends on what your business is all about, or, what are your personal branding objectives are. But then you want to have a blog. And over there, you're not going to be talking about yourself. You'll be talking about the type of content that you are an expert on. So in your case, Ryan, you would have a blog and you would talk about personal branding. If somebody is, accounting consultant, then they're going to talk about accounting. They're going to be blogging about, hey, are you ready for, the tax returns that are coming up? Here are the 10 resources to make your life easier. And just blogging over and over about, the topics that you are passionate about, and, where you want to be perceived as an expert is critical for the success of your website.
I have a listener, we'll call him Jeremy today, and he has really excellent credentials. He's spoken at conferences, he's written white papers, he's even published articles in trade magazines. He doesn't have a blog yet today, and he's not super active on social media. And when you type in his name, and if you were to type in his full name, what comes up is not just him, but it happens there are other Jeremys out there. How would you recommend he get started to pull all of the good information that is out there available online, to pull it all together so that he can create one kind of holistic look at him? Where would you tell him to get started?
I would tell him to, again, start blogging and start using the blogging content to launch a book on Amazon.
Ooh, okay.
So, Amazon is I call it the next gold rush of the internet, because Amazon is actually the 5th website on the web when it comes to website traffic in the US. And it has a lot of, users who are there for one simple reason, either to buy things or to consume thought leadership content. And, the publishing process, it's upside down these days. It used to be you had to, talk to a gatekeeper and you would get rejected a lot, and it would take you 2 years to publish a book. Today, you can self-publish a book on Amazon Kindle relatively quickly. And then, when it comes to getting your credentials established and being invited for interviews and getting speaking engagements, a lot of folks who make decisions, who gets invited, look for Amazon. And if you have a book where you can condense all your ideas into maybe some kind of a training system or some kind of a story, you could put it out there and have a unique point of view. It will help you with your online presence, with getting business leads, and everything between the lines.
You have a great line in your book where you say you are not your resume, you are your work. What advice would you give to people who associate themselves so closely to their work that they miss that on the side they're actually really passionate about other things that could become the content for which they become a subject matter expert? How do you get them to move from thinking, well, I am my job and that's what I'm all about, versus, you know what, I'm not my job, I actually enjoy doing this, and I'm pretty well known for doing this? How do you get them to make that shift?
That's another good question, Ryan, and not an easy one, right? Because sometimes we get complacent. We get our paycheck, we have our desk, or a cubicle, and we kind of come to work every day, and we get complacent with our jobs. But it's a really risky path today. And I'm just going to quote Thomas Friedman, who is a New York Times columnist. He's also the author of The World is Flat and numerous other best-selling books.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, it changed my life, really. And I talk about him and his ideas when he talks about that average is officially over, and you need an extra. You need to add an extra to your job performance, and you need to add extra to your resume to not only move ahead of the pack, but just be able to stay in your job and compete. Because right now, the technologies and outsourcing and all those new trends that we're seeing today are unfortunately causing a situation where job market has changed dramatically. So when I was working at agencies, I built teams of like 10 people, and I hired a lot of people, and the resume was the last thing I was looking at, to be honest. I don't really need a resume. I just need to look you up on LinkedIn and see if people referred you. See how you present yourself. Are you mature? Do you have a picture that is professional? And how you talk about yourself? And are you on Twitter? Do you have ideas? Are you a passionate person? And because I would get so many resumes for any type of position, you would need to stand out from the pack. And the way you do it is when I look you up and you have maybe you have a lot of Twitter followers, or you have some kind of unique content out there. So if you were stuck in a job and that you maybe don't like, or you want to move on and do other things that you're more passionate about, and you really discover that passion for yourself, start talking about it. Start putting some work out that will credentialize those new passions. So you can either move to another role in your current job, or you can start a business, or you can look for other jobs. That's really the best way to stand out today and moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny. I just recently gave some advice to a friend who asked, I was telling him about what I do on the side here with the podcast and all that. And he said, man, how did you do all that? And for me, it all comes down to two words. And those two words are just start, meaning get started doing something. Don't, as you alluded to, we get complacent and, we have a desk and we get used to doing those things. But if you think you want to do something else, you need to just start, because somehow motion has a way of overcoming fear and all kinds of other obstacles. And, I think what you just said was, get out there, get started, do something. Because if I look at myself, when I started my blog, I had one goal in mind, which was to outrank the other Ryan Rotens. That was it. Right. But I had no idea how to do it. I knew I needed a website. And I just started. And as you just start, things begin to come to you, and you start to realize, I do have a passion about some of these other things, and I do talk a lot about these other things on the side. That's what I want to differentiate myself with.
I totally agree with you. And I would just say a simple formula that I put out in my book and in a lot of speaking engagements is do things, tell people. But don't kind of like go out and start talking about things if you haven't done it yet. So really start doing it, whether it's blogging or podcasting or webinars, get your message out there, maybe interview. If you are not an expert yet, because I think one of the obstacles for folks is, they don't, I don't call myself ever an expert. I'm not any type of a guru. I'm constantly learning. I teach at NYU to learn, and I write books to learn. I interview people to learn, and that should always be your approach. Don't think of yourself as an expert. Think of yourself as a lifelong learner. And then it's going to be much easier for you to go out and talk about, hey, I'm passionate about this, and I would like to ask you a couple questions. Do you have any word of advice for me? And would you like to get on my podcast? And then you start getting associated with experts in the field just because you are a learner. So I think the mistake that a lot of folks do that I come across on social media or blogging is that, they get out there and they call themselves guru and experts, and it's sort of a little off-putting in a way because you come across as somebody who's really, self-centered versus, being centered on providing value to others by sharing your failures, your experiences. So start as a learner and, do things and then go out and tell people. And, Woody Allen famously said, showing up is 80% of success. So make sure you show up on Google. Make sure you show up at events and meetups in your area, with other people who are passionate about the same thing. Gather and start talking to them and just, share your own experiences. That's really the way to go. Do things and show up to talk about it.
Now, if I was interested in attending an event in my local area, where would you recommend that I go even look or get started to find people who are also interested in the same thing in my area?
I'm in New York, so I use meetup.com, and I'm not sure whether it's a national type of enterprise.
It is.
I'm not sure if they're, okay, so meetup.com, and actually it's a New York-based startup, and I think they started in New York and they moved to other places. It's a really good resource. So you would just search for certain keywords, identify meetups that are happening in your area. There are a lot of community organizers that will help you out. They'll invite you to the group. They introduce you to other members, but you have to have an approach which is, how can I come in and add value to others? And especially because they don't know me and I need to establish myself. So instead of asking and sort of being, salesy in a way, if you just started a business or you want to promote yourself, think about how your skills and your expertise can add value to their businesses or what they do. And the good karma will always come back to you.
Yeah, you've got a phrase in your book also. I think you borrowed it from the book, How to Make Friends and Influence People. To be interesting, you must be interested. Mm-hmm. And I love that because, even what I do on Twitter is I curate content of other people, and I curate content that's interesting to me that I think other people might be interested in as well. And I share that information, and that just because I started doing it, that has helped me meet a lot of really great people online like yourself that I never would have known or come across any other way.
Such a good point, Ryan. We call it in the industry, we call it content curation. So, we talked about being interested before you become interesting. And we talked about being a, person of content before people will start talking about you. Right? Or, make yourself worth talking to in a way. So, it's not only about your content. It's not only about your point of view. A lot of it is about summarizing, the type of information that you learn from that defines you as a professional, as a, thought leader, as a speaker, as an author, whoever you are. So in this very podcast, we mentioned so many different authors and podcasters, Ryan, who influence us as entrepreneurs, as professionals, because we give credit to those folks. We learn from them, and then we summarize that. We add our own unique point of view on top of that. So, when you blog, when you do content marketing, think about identifying leaders in the space and famous bloggers and start linking to them, talking about their stuff, sharing their content. So your own audience will appreciate you're being a great curator. And when you're just getting started, you want to be more of a curator than a creator. And then as you learn by curating, identifying, who are the leaders you should follow and learning from them, you become more of a creator. Now you develop your own unique point of view, building on the knowledge of others.
And nobody wants to follow somebody that's boring. There's a good quote by Seth Godin where he says, if you're boring, no one wants to connect with you. And if you're boring, no one is going to pay extra for you, meaning you have to be interested in others in order to become interesting. You've mentioned LinkedIn. We've talked about websites. These are two great ways to get our content out in public for others to see. And there's a quote from Ira Glass, I believe, that's in your book. Great stories happen to those who can tell them. Mm-hmm. And I know you are a big user of SlideShare, and you use SlideShare to help tell your story. Can you help for those who don't know? Can you explain a little bit about what SlideShare is, first off?
Sure. SlideShare is a social media network, which is for basically PowerPoint decks and presentations. Now, if you have design skills, you can do very pretty presentations in tools like Canva or on your Mac using Keynote. But the basic premise is this is basically a social network for professionals, for startups to put up presentations up. And, it's very important what you said. You have to be interesting. You cannot be boring, as Seth Godin indicated, but you have to also play to your strengths. So not everybody is comfortable behind the camera. Mm-hmm. Like for a long time, I wasn't comfortable doing podcasting because I have thick, heavy Polish accent, which you can,
I didn't notice.
Yeah, right.
I thought you were from New York.
yeah, from Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, I'm actually in Queens right now, but and that's okay too, because you have to play to your strengths. So if you are a great writer, you may leverage platforms like Medium and platforms like blogging. If you are a great designer, you can be on Pinterest, and if you are a photographer, you can be on Instagram and tell your story through those medium. So I always advocate to people use SlideShare because you know how to do a PowerPoint deck, and you can tell a story through images and words through PowerPoint decks. And there are, I got like 500,000 views on SlideShare in 2 years, putting up, maybe 15 decks. And, a SlideShare also is a great platform for two reasons. First, it was bought by LinkedIn. So it's integrated into your LinkedIn profile. So if you find me on LinkedIn, you search for Matthew Capala, you see that a lot of my SlideShare decks are embedded. You can embed them on LinkedIn and your blog and social media. And you become, more interesting, basically. You're not boring because it's not a white paper. It's not a bio. Matthew Capala is this and that. It's actually a stories I'm telling through podcasting and mediums like SlideShare. So I really, just yesterday, I gave a talk at a startup event here in New York, and I was telling everybody, listen, get on SlideShare, put your message out in the form of a deck because it's easy for you to do, and there is just tons of opportunity there. SlideShare also has a homepage. So if your deck gets on the homepage, if a lot of people engages with it, that equals to a lot of traffic there.
Yeah, the other thing about SlideShare too is just to, unless you load it up with just bullet point after bullet point, it's very easy to consume quickly, and so you can make really great points very quickly.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about infotainment. It's a term coined by Gary Vaynerchuk, who's the author of Jab, 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 Right Hook,
which is another great book.
It's a great book. I mean, I'm not sure if he coined the term, but he talks about it a lot, so I'm going to give him credit. But we talk about being interesting. So you can talk about dry topic of accounting or, SEO, search engine optimization. It's, I wrote a book about it, and, it's a topic that can be intimidating and dry, like technical. So if you want to get ahead and you want to engage people on social media and tell stories, you need to kind of merge the entertainment value of content with informational value. So I would do a SlideShare deck, for example, in a blog post, like what you can learn about social media from Borat. And I would give a lot of examples from Borat and social media accounts that are, about Borat. And that deck, became like the top 10 decks for social media of 2014. And people really liked it because they learned social media and they were entertained. Mm-hmm. I wasn't just giving them white background and bullet points. I was sort of bringing those two together, information and entertainment.
Yeah, I did. I actually flipped through that, and it is a very good slideshow. It's very entertaining. You made some good humorous points to keep it light, but you also made some very good points that people can take away and implement and use immediately.
Thank you for saying that, Ryan. It's whatever you do and whoever you are, just kind of think about, it's so important today to get your message out. And, if you don't know how to do YouTube videos or podcasting, which is, there's a lot of, technical things you have to do, just get on a platform like SlideShare, LinkedIn, and just create something and tell some kind of a story about yourself, about the stuff that you're interested in. And that's a good place to start.
Since I mentioned at the beginning, your company, Search Decoder, I'd like to talk just a little bit about that. What is Search Decoder?
It's a place for entrepreneurs and bloggers and pretty much anybody who wants to learn how to get on top of Google, how to blog, how to do content marketing. So I talk about, here we talk about strategies and sort of, what's important. But if you want to really learn how it's done, which platforms to use to grow quickly, which tools to use, you would get to my website and you can get a lot of information and interviews with experts in the space.
Excellent. So if somebody, if they're listening and they want to go start a website and they're starting to wrestle with the content idea they have, they can go to Search Decoder to figure out maybe some different tools and things that they can use to help them be able to rank a little bit higher in Google. That's
a good way to put it. And in my book, SEO Like I'm 5, I've written it for a beginner. It's a beginner's sort of, when Albert Einstein once said, if you cannot explain it to a 6-year-old, you cannot explain it to an adult. So I challenged Albert Einstein. I took it a step down, and I'm like 5 years old, right? But it's really, a book where to get started on the internet, whether you're a small business or you want to start a blog for a personal brand. So I take you from, which domain hosting to use, which platform to use to blog, and which social networks you should be on, which tools to use. So I think, Search Decoder will give you a lot of information, but, you can always look up my book at SEOlike5.com.
Yeah, and I'm a voucher. It is a very good book. It's very well written. I learned multiple things throughout it, especially when it gets a little technical, but it is very well written, and you do a great job of breaking down, some of these kind of more technical terms into easily understandable, bite-sized pieces of information that people can walk away with and go, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
So let's go ahead and let's start to wrap up, Matthew. What is the best way for any of the listeners to get in touch with you?
I'm big on Twitter. I love Twitter. So, that's just the best way to get a hold of me. I'm on Twitter at Search Decoder, so you can find me there. Give me a shout, and I'll be sure to respond to you.
I'm a voucher. He does respond.
And I do want to point out that it's so important. If you are on Twitter, on Facebook, and you start blogging and you start developing your own audience, it's so important to respond to everyone. It's just a social media etiquette. You say thank you, you respond and you start a conversation. So it's just the best practice for everyone to follow.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be much. I mean, you only get 140 characters anyway, but a simple, hey, thank you for the, retweeting, or thank you for the follow. That goes a long way towards developing a relationship.
I totally agree with you.
All right. So Matthew, any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or tips that you'd like to pass on to the listeners today about anything that we've talked about today, personal branding, SEO?
Again, I just want to say invisibility is a faith much worse than failure. So, just fail, just fail a couple times, because, it's success, as James Altucher says, for example, it's a path of failures punctuated with occasional bursts of success. So you have to kind of just start doing it, and you may fail a couple times. You may write a couple blog posts where nobody's going to read. But after the 10th blog post or the 10th podcast that you publish on iTunes, you'll see that things will start compounding for you. So I think both of us, Ryan, just want to, push your listeners to action. And then just get a hold of us on Twitter, share your stories with us. If we can help you in any way, retweet your stuff, I'll be happy to. So best of luck to everyone, and happy 2015.
Awesome. And by the way, you will be my 10th podcast. So
now it's gonna, and Ryan, before I let you go, I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned in your podcast that you are a gamer. And I also, it's my guilty pleasure. I haven't played a video game for a while.
Okay.
So, I just want to get a sense what's good out there.
Frankly, this podcast has consumed my nightlife for a while now. But when I was playing, I play first-person shooter games. So think about games like Destiny or Halo. So I'm pretty excited about Halo 5 that's going to come out later this year. I also really enjoy Assassin's Creed. I like the games where you have to think. It's not just go out with a guns blazing type games. I like the ones also where you have to think about your approach. If can I sneak up on this person without them seeing them?
Yeah.
Tomb Raider is another good example of a game where it makes you think and solve puzzles in order to move forward. So I like those kind of games as well. Gotcha.
I'm more of a third-person shooter, so I like games like Grand Theft Auto, and Mass Effect, and Metal Gear Solid. So I'm usually just like waiting for some of those big franchises to come up with a new game, and adventure-based games like Uncharted. So I'm a PlayStation user. I'm assuming that you are Xbox.
I am. Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, so good to talk to you, and I'll be looking forward to some of the feedback from the listeners on iTunes and on Twitter.
Well, hey, Matthew, thank you for being on, and same to you. If I can ever help you with anything you're working on, you just let me know, and maybe someday I can have you back on, and we can just talk specifically about SEO.
Sounds great, Ryan. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. And there you have it. Another fantastic show, this time courtesy of Matthew Capala. Matthew and I covered a lot of ground in this episode, including mentioning numerous books and reference materials. But have no fear, I'll have all of that linked up in the show notes over at ryanroten.com/Matthew. Thank you again, Matthew, for being on the show and sharing all of your fantastic advice and tips, especially those on how we can avoid being invisible. And I want to send out a special thanks to all of you for listening today. I know there are other things you could be listening to, and I'm humbled that you have chosen to spend some of your time with me today. So as we close out this episode, stay tuned and listen in to the outro for a really cool 100% free gift from me to you. And as always, until next time, I've been Ryan, and I'm out. Hey folks, if you want to leverage your personal brand and become known in your field, you first need to become visible. To find out how visible you are, you need to take my 100% free online branding assessment. So head on over to ryanroten.com, click the orange start button to learn how visible you are today.